The Border Management Authority, that's the BMA, has unveiled new security measures to boost traveller verification and law enforcement at ports of entry. It says the move is part of its renewed push to enhance border security operations. The BMA also says it will cover all the four critical areas. The Commissioner, Dr. Mike Masiapato, says the areas include immigration, agriculture, health and environment. Let's speak to Calvin Dludla, who has been attending that briefing out in Pretoria. Good afternoon, Calvin. What came out of this briefing? 4 areas of focus. The issue of migration, uncontrolled migration, is a pain point for many South Africans. What came out of this briefing that says the BMA hears and the BMA will act on those concerns?
Good afternoon to Lasizo and to our SABC viewers at home. Yes, indeed, we are at the GCIS. That is where the Border Management Authorities Commissioner Dr. Mike Masiapato, as you have mentioned, was releasing a report on the performance and also in the introduction of immigration security stamp, saying that it's difficult or it's somehow difficult for them to continue with some of their duties because of the issues that were raised by the Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs in Parliament about their underfunding and the allegations of corruption within the BMA. But let me introduce him first and foremost. Thank you very much for your time, and we apologize for keeping you waiting for such a long time. Thank you very much for your time. The media briefing is over. You can just explain for our viewers at home the content of the report.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Calvin. I think the first thing that we need to indicate is that we had opted to make sure that at least we keep South Africa informed in terms of the work that we do as the BMA. So on that basis, we then decided that we needed to do some kind of your quarterly briefings, particularly also in terms of the complexity of the requirements for people to move in between the borders. So on that basis, we're making a briefing that was basically covering all of our various areas of work. We spoke about the work we do in terms of port agriculture, port environment, port immigration, as well as port health, but also even in terms of the broader work that we do in terms of border law enforcement. So on that basis, we're basically given that report. But secondly, we're also given some bit of an update to indicate that we have decided to retire the old stamps in terms of immigration work, which we had inherited from the Department of Home Affairs, and now we've introduced the BMA stamps that are actually supposed to be very much secure, and in order to make sure that they are not easily forgeable and all of those kind of issues. So that is one other aspect that we're doing, but we're also unveiling our pilots. We just completed their training in terms of drone pilot training, as it were.
Let's talk about the stamps that you are talking about. You are telling me that you inherited those old stamps from the Department of Home Affairs. Now you have your new stamps. When did it start working? And you can tell us more about the security features of the stamps there.
Yeah, maybe the first thing to indicate is the fact that in terms of immigration work, when we inherited the team, obviously from the Department of Home Affairs on the 1st of April 2023, basically they were using this kind of stamps, as you can see it. So this is the kind of stamp that you can get from any stationery shop, as it were. It basically just demonstrates the date of stamp and all of that. So effectively what people used to do is to go out there and duplicate the stamp and ultimately stamp people's passports for a fee. And the other unfortunate part is that a stamp, as it is given to our official, there was no any link to the stamp to the official, as it were. And that is why we then introduced these stamps, which are fairly new. Maybe I can just also show a bit. So if you look at this particular stamp, you will see that here it is even engraved at the BMA. And on that basis, the kind of engraving that has been done here cannot necessarily be duplicated. So we did this work together with our colleagues from the Department of printing works, as it were, or government printing works. So on that basis, we also put in security features in terms of the stamping part of it. If you check here, you will see the BMA logo is actually engraved in, and this particular engraving means if somebody is to duplicate this, they must also be able to design the logo and be able to have it in. But the other issue is we've also put in your big five, some bit of lion and all of that, but also the stamp has to do with the kind of place of operation. So for those that are on air, for example, you see an aircraft engraved. For those that are on sea, you see a ship or a vessel engraved. For those that are actually on land, you see a person engraved. So this is the new stamp. But the most important part in the stamp is that each and every official will have a particular stamp with a particular number. and that particular number get engraved when the stamp is used on the passport, meaning that should an official go out there and stamp a particular person's passport illegally, that particular passport and that particular stamping will come back to that particular official. And that is basically the kind of issue that we brought in as part of dealing with the issue of corruption in the environment.
Let's talk about the issue of being underfunded. As I have mentioned in my introduction, that the Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs raised concern on the underfunding of the BMA. What challenges are you facing when it comes to underfunding?
Yeah, maybe the first thing to indicate on that point is that the Department of Home Affairs will fairly be fully aware, because it is the direct, portfolio committee that we report to, even at the point of starting, the work of the BMA. You'll remember when we started, our business case was looking at around 2.9 billion to start the work, but we were able to only get 250 and all of that. So that reality has always been an issue in terms of our work going forward. So what is the impact? So the impact of underfunding of the BMA is multifold. If you look at, for example, human resources, our structure as approved, we are looking at around 11,200 plus individuals, but we are sitting at around 2,500. Automatically, that demonstrates that we are operating at 20%. So that has an impact in terms of our ability to cover even the vulnerable segments on the borderline to be able to do this work. But secondly, look at the ICT. In terms of broader information communication technology, we have inherited old systems, immigration-wise from the Department of Home Affairs. For other specialized functions, everything is still very much manual. And that is why we are saying all of these realities continue to impact us. So we are looking at funding to also up our ICT infrastructure so that we can be able to bring this work to kind of your latest reality. The third issue is the issue of the tools of trade. As a new law enforcement authority, we needed to buy some bit of new tools of trade to be able to bring into the environment to be able to do the work, whether it's the issue of guns, ammunition and all of those issues, including your drones and all of those. So we needed some bit of funding for us to be able to do so. Currently, we only have 4 drones, as an example. We have seen the impact that they can do. That is why we need some bit of funding to procure more and be able to deploy them in other parts of the vulnerable segment. So that is basically the status, but we do hope that there will be some bit of movement on this particular aspect.
Okay, let's talk about corruption now within a border management authority, because that might hinder the progress of your work and of your officials. There were reports that some of your officials were arrested, if I'm not mistaken, in April at the Beitbridge border post for corruption. How are you dealing with corruption now within a BMA? Are you securing convictions? Are you arresting? Are you suspending? Are you disciplining?
Yeah, you see, if we are to talk about the work that we have started doing around issues of corruption, we knew for a fact that we've inherited an environment that is fairly infested in this particular scourge, as it were. So that is why we were very much targeted in dealing with the issue. The good thing in the BMA context is that Section 13.3 allows us to do vetting of the officials. So as we speak now, we've rolled out that particular process, working together with the State Security Agency. We are very much hopeful that that particular process will enable us to be able to pick up red flags where individuals are actually living beyond their means. But secondly, we also wanted to do lifestyle audit, which is an enhanced process beyond just vetting, as it were. And in this instance, that one is not provided in law, but it is something that is critical. So we then spoke to the Special Investigating Unit. We wanted to do the top 100 officials, meaning the entire management, including myself, to be lifestyle audited. But we got an amount of 9 million from SIU for us to be able to be vetted, and we couldn't do it because we don't have that money. So we're just waiting to get some money, then we'll activate it. We wanted to start it at the higher level and be able to take it down. The rest of the other interventions we've put together, for example, colleagues are now operating with body cams, meaning as they do the work, we are able to actually see what they're doing in terms of their interaction with travelers is both visual and audio. In that instance, any attempt to do some kind of corrupt activity will be able to pick that up. It is for that reason, just in the last quarter that we are talking about, 9 officials had been fired within the BMA for having found to be corrupt. Over and above that, there is a number that is still going through some disciplinary, but we continue to identify those and we are able to take them through the value chain. As we speak, some of them continues to actually go through the justice system, where the Hawks is actually involved. And our border guards and some of the officials then becomes witnesses in those particular cases. So there is a lot of things that we are doing to deal with issues of corruption, as it were.
Dr. Masiapato, are you understaffed? If so, how many employees do you have? How many officials do you need?
Yeah, you see, understaffed is a very, I would say, rational concept. We are, yeah, maybe if there is an exaggerated concept, we can try to use. But I can just give you the facts. The facts is our approved organizational structure want around 11,200 people. But as we speak, we are around 2,500. Practically speaking, we are operating at 20% capacity. To that extent, we have a vacancy of around 8,500. That is the status where we are. So I suppose that is what you meant by understaffing. So that is basically where we are. And that is why I have said that we are looking at some bit of additional funding. Our intention is whatever amount we get, 40% will go into human resources capacity, 30% will go into tools of trade, the other 30% will go into ICT or technology.
Let's talk about those who gain port of entry for medical reasons. How are you dealing with them?
Yeah, you see, the issue is if somebody is to enter into the Republic for medical purposes or medical reasons, that is why we are saying that is allowed. But in that particular instance, one, we will want some kind of a correspondence that actually has to come to our port health specialist to indicate this particular individual is coming through into the country for medical reasons. So number one, we need a letter from the receiving doctor in the South African side or a medical facility. We will also need a medical visa that has to be issued by our own High Commission on the other side to indicate this individual is to come to South Africa for this particular purpose, which in this instance will be for medical reasons. So on that basis, we've also given an email address that is supposed to be used for that. And that particular email is lanseriapoe@bma.gov.za. So we are saying that they need to do arrangements well ahead of time so that when the patient arrives at the port, there is no undue delay, but we're able to process the person as fast as possible. That is if the person is coming through commercial aircraft, through some kind of, this organized special aircrafts, or even through an ambulance on land. All of those actually apply. Once they arrive, we process them through and they'll be able to get to the facility. And we've given in the provisions in terms of what to do in that particular instance. And we've also put those in our website for people to understand what are the requirements.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Well, because of time, Chula Sizwe, we have to wrap it. That was Dr. Masiapato. As I have mentioned, that he is a commissioner of Border Management Authority. This media briefing will be useful, Chula Sizwe, to some of the formations in this country. We remember that there were formations that were concerned about illegal foreigners in South Africa, and most of those formations are blaming government, Chula Sizwe, saying that a government is not doing enough to intercept or deal with the illegal immigration. The media briefing is over. We have to pack our bags, Chula Sizwe. But as you have heard, Dr. Masiapato saying that they have introduced a new stamp. That stamp will be able to assist them with them because it has enhanced security features. Back to you.
Thank you for that, Calvin. That's Calvin Dludla, live for us from Pretoria, where that briefing was taking place. Certainly some interesting developments coming through there from the Border Management Authority. Let's see if they do stem the tide of uncontrolled illegal migration, at least at the official ports of entry, right? Because that's part of the problem. The rest has to do with the rest of the border, not just the official entry and exit points that the BMA was talking to.